So hello all, welcome to a webinar on design management. I would like to introduce Mrs. Lolita Dutta. She is an education expert from the last 25 years and more of experience, and she has been specialized in visual communication and exhibition design from the NID, National Institute of Design. So I would like ma'am to take it from here and explain and introduce us to the new industry of emerging design management.
This is Lolita. Hi, and I'm here to talk about design management and the intervention of design and management, how the whole concept works together. In my years of working, I found that sometimes it's very important for a designer to become a manager and for a manager to understand design. And today we just look at how some of these things are possibly achieved. So what is design management? There are several definitions. The one I have defined today, which says that it's a holistic approach which bridges the gap between business and design. Then comes a very pertinent question which most people do ask, is that why do designers refrain from being efficient managers in a business? So there are a few things we could look at which may give you a perspective of why we ask this question. One of the main things of why designers don't maybe make good managers is because a lot of designers who obviously know that they have a creative edge, they prefer to look at their own aesthetic sensibilities and very often forget that their sensibilities or their aesthetics may not necessarily be comprehended the same way by others, and therefore find it very difficult to accept some other aesthetic sensibility. They also avoid being team players and they prefer to work very often in isolation. Although in today's context it is very important to be that team player, because if you are a team player can you actually bring out the best in terms of your creative input as well as the kind of output that you could give to an industry. But this is a problem, and designers very often think that what they do on their own is probably the best thing they do. So there is a need to rectify this.
So I think ma'am this answers one of the question which normally every layman has. So as a layman I would just ask on to this part that yes, people as managers they find it difficult to be designers, and as designers it would be difficult from the other way. So as a good designer I may not be thinking of being a good manager.
Very true.
So your point of view on that has come through this slide, and would like you to elaborate a few more points onto that.
Yeah, so the other thing is that designers often lack a leadership quality because they prefer to live in a creative world, and they use this concept of living in their own creative world as a very convenient excuse. And it's often felt that the designer just feels that the manager does not understand what he or she is doing on the drawing board or bringing to the table. And this I think results very often in mixed reactions from both sides and therefore causes a lot of confusion.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So as a designer today I have to think from the manager's perspective also. So I will not be a designer anymore. I would be part of the designer as well as the management.
So it's important therefore for designers who work in competitive market-driven environments or industries, there is a very critical need to iterate between design and strategic thinking. Now this need stems from again the relevance of fact that design is a creative pursuit. However, design has certain meaning and certain relevance, and strategic thinking is a strategic thinking from the industry's point of view, because at the end of the day, anything that we do today which is market driven does have to obviously cater to the need of the market.
Right.
And if you are not able to cater to the need of the market, then you do lose out on the competitive edge. So even if you are a good designer, sometimes that may not work. So the blend, therefore, of being a design and a design manager becomes very critical and very important.
Correctly.
So, however, the relevance of, we are still talking about the relevance of design. So the relevance of design is that when you do design, there is a lot of research and qualitative analysis which also goes into any given business which leads to better design. And there is a very critical saying which I think makes a lot of sense, which says good design means good business. In other words, that if your design is good and if your design caters to the market, then at the end of the day you are looking at obviously a good business approach. You're looking at monies, which is the key word in today's market, and anything which is generating or giving us the profits and the profit sharing is obviously looked at with a lot of relevance today. Yeah.
So yes,
So
there are products in the market which says, okay, if a product is good designed, is a well designed product, it has more sale as compared to a product
yeah,
which is lesser designed.
it certainly has a competitive edge, and it certainly has a better standing in the entire market-driven society.
Just an example to state, it is like just an Apple phone, an Apple device. If we go and purchase that device, we give our money, but we do get the product in a very better design as compared to the other phones which are available in the market with durability and as well as very good design that focuses more on the product.
Yeah, very true. Apple, I think, is a time-tested example because it's one of the business houses where Steve Jobs actually did address the designer and said that it's all very well to have technology, but there is no interesting technology without good design. And he allowed his designer to create something which was different in the context of when Apple was emerging as a product, as an important institution virtually. So I think, yeah, it's a relevant example, and there are several other examples which we can look at in today's context. Even if we take the simple concept of a safety pin, which is such a micro product, but look at the need that that safety pin fulfills, and that's where it's really good design. And that good design has led to a huge market. So, and the product is really, really so small.
Definitely.
So the product can go from anything to a safety pin to a large complicated system that we have today.
Right.
So then, looking at the reverse, we need to understand why an MBA or other business professionals need to be sensitive to design intervention. Very often the MBA and business professionals they look at it only from their point of view in terms of research, data analysis, money, finance, budgets, etc. And they often forget that it is the brand which makes the product. It is a brand which gives quality. It is a brand which gives value to anything.
Rightly.
So when we come to that, we therefore, what is a brand? The brand is something that a designer creates in terms of an identity which goes into any kind of design. I would say whether it's a product or a service, it stems from extensive research, which then therefore creates evolved aesthetics, which also then creates a brand. It creates a brand which gives value to that product, and that value, if you strategically then as from the business point of view sustain in a particular manner, then the value of that brand goes up, and then that value of the brand is going up as the recognized brand that exists in the market. Like for example, if we were to talk of say Nike, for example, Nike is a worldwide brand and everybody uses it in some way.
We all know Nike very well.
But how do we recognize Nike? We simply see the swoosh or the tick mark as we call it, and we know it's Nike. Yeah. So the designer who has designed that has obviously used a rationale of creating that form.
That makes an impact in fact on all the consumers. Yeah,
so that is what the business person needs to understand, that when the designer works, there is always a rationale for using a certain type, a form, a color, an image, and there is a reason for doing so. And all this comes again from extensive research, extensive understanding of objectives, philosophies, needs, markets, society, and only then does the designer put pen to paper and creates within that drawing or creates within that creative process various identities which we call visual identities, which go on to become the super brands as we call them today, which are then recognizable in the market and then therefore sustain and go on to become bigger brands. So there's a constant need to therefore understand the psychology of the designer and how the designer empathizes with the society or with the people he or she is creating for, and then goes on to create that extensive product or that specific visual identity, or it could be a clothing item, it could be anything virtually, any product or any service is based on understanding the psychology both ways. Yeah? Therefore, we can say that good design process and perceptions can lead to successful business ventures. Yes. Now, when you have a good design process and when you perceive the problem of design, of whatever you're designing, in a particular way, which is again for a market-driven society, which is for any kind of a business venture, it becomes very critical to understand how that design is going to work. And if that design begins to work and the stakeholder is happy, then obviously you have succeeded in utilizing the amalgamation or the marriage between business and design. And I think,
very true.
Yeah, so therefore, as a conclusion almost, we can say that design management works to the advantage of both the designer and the manager of any business, or any business who utilizes a design service realizes the value of what design brings to the table. And once any business venture or any manager or any person in a corporate situation or any situation like that understands that, and the designer needs to understand that a certain business venture requires a certain kind of a product or a certain kind of a visual image, then if they both agree, being on same sides of the table, then obviously you're going to come up with a situation, a product, a service which is very critical and very, it makes an impact in the market. And once that impact is created, then it's actually easy sailing from there, and then you're looking at profits.
Once so manager and a designer now together has to work together to bring it to a greater profit. Towards
so and any business venture wants to see profits, then they realize the value. So I think it works both.
So a manager needs designer and designer needs manager.
Very true.
Yeah. So I would just request you to throw some light on the opportunities that are coming up in the market for these designers, come managers, or
there are a couple of courses which have design management or strategic design management as they call, and if you have, I personally know of a couple of people who have a design background and then have gone on to do a strategic design management course, and today they work as strategic design managers, where they don't leave the design part behind because it's a part of their lifestyle, let's say, in fairly large companies like Samsung, Whirlpool and several others, where they realize the value that design brings to the table, and they also realize the value that a sensitive designer who has understanding of the business or the functioning of any business can create a service or a product which is relevant, critical, and important to the society they cater for.
So from an entrepreneur's point of view, so we can just think of that the person should work always in the right perspective with the designers. So if a business head thinks that he wants to do more business, then it is a designer which can make the greater impact too.
Yeah, the designer can certainly bring value to the table, as I said earlier, and that value is what creates that design, which creates a brand, let's say.
Yeah.
And then it works to the advantage of both the business venture as well as the designer. Because at the end of the day, money is also business and business is money.
Definitely. So thank you so much, ma'am, for being here and sharing your thoughts on this particular topic and sharing your experience with us. And this was very valuable for us, me, and the audience here. So thank you so much. So you all can write for your queries on sachin.rana@pearlife.com or anuradha.devnath@pearlife.com. Thank you all.
Thank you.